Hello, my name is Zachary Davis. I am the coordinator of the European Horizon 22 LEBID project. Today, we're going to talk a little bit about how LEBID works, but also how the LEBID services involved that can help both make a sort of tell you about more about how things much will cost, the business side, maybe IPR patenting, a lot of non-technical services included in the LEBID infrastructure. But before we go there, we would like to remind you, so what is lightweight embedded electronics? Well, the idea of lightweight embedded electronics is to go from this more traditional printed circuit board technology, which you see here in the image, which is a rigid FR4, a composite where you have electroplated copper and edged copper to make the electronics. And then you are mounting, of course, SMD components and other microcontroller and ICs to something that is based on a printing technology. And there's, of course, a lot of added values to going through the printed technology. In this case, you can print on plastic foils, which are much cheaper than FR4 substrates. You can do it in a mass volume production facilities. You can make it much more lightweight and much more easier, therefore easier to integrate into new applications and existing applications. LEBID is basically what we call an open innovation testbed for the development and production of nanomaterials, but also lightweight embedded electronics and processes for that. As you can see in the figure, we have what we call the single entry point, and that is where you gain access to LEBID infrastructure, services and facilities expertise. And this is a website, www.bed.eu. Once you get there, you can then sign up, and then, of course, you get contacted by a project manager, which will then guide you through the different phases of LEBID. In LEBID right now, we are talking about 3 phases. The first phase is what we call the technical modeling phase. And this is where we can actually get we get information from the customer, from you. We can do an analysis of what we can and cannot do with the infrastructure and the expertise we have at our disposal. We can actually do some calculations on how a project will look, doing prototyping or proof of concept, or even going up to a pilot production. We can do a lot of different things. I'll tell you more about those services in a minute. After that, then we go into more of a pilot project, which is usually more of a project where you get access to pilot lines and expertise. And this, of course, can be small proof of concept projects all the way up to a more pilot production project. And then finally, we round off with the phase 3, which is the knowledge transfer services, which I'll also talk about later in this presentation. So the single entry point is the main contact point for customers wanting to get access to the services and the pilot lines that LEBID has. Just to show you, we are quite a lot of partners behind all these services and infrastructure. We actually have, I would say, the best expertise in Europe when it comes to both materials and formulations and printing lines. We have also state-of-the-art inline characterization facilities through Foundry-from-List CIATEC. And we also have quite a lot of expertise in the phase 1 and also the phase 3 services, which you see on before and after the pilot projects, which we'll talk more in detail now. Going to the phase 1 flow. So basically what we're talking about is that we follow, first of all, we talk to the customer and then give them what we call a sort of a sheet, or sort of a customer requirement sheet, which is an Excel log where they have to fill out, which is going to help us know exactly what the specifications are, which application areas are we talking about, what are the boundary conditions in terms of economics, financial support, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So this is going to sort of give all the information we need to perform the services, a URS, a user requirement sheet, URS document. After we've done that, we need to do a technical economic assessment. In this case, what we do is talk to the pilot lines, and we sort of talk about the actual technical solutions we can provide to the customer. We do also a some very preliminary economic assessment where we can talk about how much will things cost in a development phase versus a scale-up phase, for example, trying to understand what are the economics, what are the costs involved for making a product, for example, and embedding it with printed electronics. We can then, of course, go to safety assessment, a full economic assessment, a life cycle assessment, talking about the sustainability, patent mapping. That means who is doing it. Somebody already has this idea, for example, and last but not least, pilot project financial support. And that means that we can actually help small SMEs get access to funding that can fund a infrastructure access. Usually, all in all, all of these combined will take about 1 to 2 months of work, but this will also vary dependent on the needs of the customer. Sometimes it will take a very short amount of time, and others it will take longer, depending on what the needs are of the customer. So if you look more in details, the technological assessment service is evaluation of the technical feasibility, which gives us a sort of a yes or no answer of can this be done with the LeadBed infrastructure or not. It also assists it is an evaluation of the risk level of the technical development. Is it something that's just off the shelf and we need just to put it together, or is there some undeveloped process or material that needs to be done that gives you a more higher risk level? And of course, higher risk means usually also higher cost in the development phase. A uniform data collection, so you are giving us the requirements through the URS, but you are also giving you a sort of a general way to look at what we're doing through what we call a system architecture. And the system architecture is giving you sort of what is coming from the customer side and what is LeadBed contributing to the overall system of the product. And so this is really giving you the idea of exactly what we're going to do, what you're going to do, what's the risk involved, and also, of course, the feasibility level of what we're going to do. So it gives you, and the outcome is, of course, customer knows if their idea is feasible and what risk level they're at, and also what service providers will actually help you go and give you a solution. In terms of the safety screening services, this is actually also quite important, especially when you're talking about novel, nanomaterials that are sort of inside products. So there's also this. We can give you a little bit, actually, preliminary sort of aspect or sort of list of the regulatory aspects that are involved in case you're working with nanomaterials or in other electronic products, for example. For automotive industry, there's actually quite a lot of regulatory aspects to electronics and also in other applications as well. We can also do risk management of the regulatory risks. We can actually even at this early stage consider toxicological and toxicological aspects and even plan measurements if that's needed. And we can also sort of map out the potential exposures for nanomaterials if that's an issue. So in this case, you get a sort of a service that will inform you of all the regulatory facets to your project, but also any safety-related information if that's a thing. The economic assessment service is, of course, the economic feasibility. You probably have a cost sort of law ceiling that you need to be below before this will even go to market. Then we can take this into aspect. How much can, for example, a printed solution compare to a printed PCB solution, sort of a standard service? So we can benchmark these two in a modeling phase. We can do a business model canvas, and we can also, of course, calculate some preliminary figures on the material and the supplier costs of the printed solution. So in this case, you will know the more the economic feasibility of their and tie that into a business case for the customer. The life cycle assessment service is actually about is more looking at the sustainability of the printed solution or the printed components and the printed materials and processes, and then comparing that also to the standard sort of what's being done now, contributions to climate change, for example, the CO2 equivalents, and also the resources used, the sort of materials resources that are used in. So we're talking about the climate change contribution and the resources contribution. We can then, of course, assess the early impact of this. What is the actual, sort of LCA impact, and then maybe also compare that to the what's being done today in terms of a PCB technology. Customers know the environmental hotspots and then also the potential implications of their emission product through the LCA in a sustainability framework. Then we have the patent mapping service, and this is actually quite a very useful for especially for companies or entrepreneurs that have new ideas. Has this been done before? What companies are working on this, etc. These are the questions we can answer using the patent mapping service. So we can identify relevant related patents based on the patent codes and keywords. So you give us, we try to figure out the keywords and also the patent codes that are relevant for a specific application. And then we can go in and try to figure out what companies are working with those or are filing patents in that area. So it's assessment of the competition regarding technology, production of technology need, trends, location, geography, where are these patents being done, and also gives you, of course, a list of the competitors and potential partners for the project development. Finally, in the phase one, we're looking at the pilot project funding support services, and this is, of course, for not all companies, especially for small and medium-sized enterprises. They do not have a lot of capital at their disposal. I mean, depending on the size of the technical solution needed, I mean, this can range from a few thousand euros up to hundreds of thousands of euros. So this is depending on the length and the scale of what we're talking about. So we of course have a list of national and international funding options. We also have contact partners that can help write and also coordinate these type of funding services proposals, and then sort of take the customer from all the way from the idea to the writing, all the way to submission, and then hopefully getting the funding and then starting the project. So I'm going to skip this one, but what we want to make a product, I mean, this is the sort of idea. So the second part is sort of knowing the sort of the after the pilot project is finished. We have another sort of a collection of services that is basically what we call knowledge transfer services. And now we have done a pilot project. We have developed some prototype, and we have learned some. We have developed some IPR. So there's a lot of things that how do we go from this sort of prototype or even a pilot scale production up to the next step. And the next step could be a pilot production, or it could be going to the market. Going commercial. So these are the types of services which can help them on the way to that. So first of all is the IPR and patenting. We have standardizations and safety services, and we also have business planning and investor capital. As you can see, they are sort of recapping a little bit the phase one services in some areas, but this is sort of, once we have a preliminary version, we do a pilot project, and then we can reiterate all of these services to give the customer exactly what they need to go to market. The IPR and patent services are sort of on offer training for intellectual property rights, so you can get some basic training on what is intellectual property, the different types of IPR, etc. Patenting and licensing support we can also provide, identifying the financial and strategic benefits of licensing, and also organize the knowledge management seminars. So there's quite a lot of services here, which is performed by Axia Innovation. In the outcome, LeadBid users will familiarize with methods of IPR protection, knowledge and IPR management, exploring their options and how to protect the IP that's been generated in a pilot project. And then we come to the standardization and safety services. So in this case, if we really want to go to market, you need to comply with the regulatory and standards of whatever application area you're in. So in this case, it is mandatory that you do this. So it ensures compliance with standards of all the project results going into a specific field. It can also help proposition new standards if there are no existing standards in an area. We can look at the regulatory compliances, focus on the nanotechnology, but also the electronics part, in particular to the areas of risk assessment and risk management. And we can finally perform safety services. So we can actually do exposure measurements, risk management, and regulatory assessments very specific to the product, and do all these services as well. So in the outcome of this is, of course, customers should familiarize with regulatory safety issues and get training and organization when it's necessary. The business planning services are quite well in terms of really going to market. You need to have, of course, a business plan if you want to attract investors, investor capital, and then you really need to have a solid business plan. And of course, Leadbid can help you with that. So business models are being defined based on value proposition, market assessment, SWOT, and PESTEL analysis. We can make financial models describing the cost and revenue projections, and we can even calculate profit margins and payback ROI, etc. So in this case, you can really get a solid business plan. We can help you with that in order to really go. And this is, of course, tied very closely to the next service, which is investor capital services. So based on the, of course, business plan, then we can get you into contact with different investor solutions. So offers financial advice, optimize the business plan, as we said before, and develop the financial model for that, list of potential investors and give you context to those, and of course analysis of the offers received and advice to choose the most the beneficial offering that comes along. In this case, the customers are informed on additional funding, external investments opportunities in order to go take their product to reach the market, basically. And that's basically it for the services of Leadbid. There's quite a lot of them, of course, and if you have questions or comments, of course, you're very welcome to contact me, and we really look forward to seeing your visit to Leadbid and get started today. So please visit our website or contact me or some of the other Leadbid staff, and then we'll be happy to help you as best we can. And thank you very much.